Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Dietzo Man Productions.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for joining the Scott Townsend Show. And today I have with me returning guest for the fourth or fifth time now. Looks like it's Keith Clark. Keith, how's it going?
Doing great. How you doing, Scott?
Good. So I knew you were doing this. Well, the last time you and I talked, one of the last times, you rode an electric motorcycle across Iowa or something. A bicycle.
Back up. Bicycle.
And
I had to pedal. I
Yeah.
had electric assist. Okay, let's get that straight.
Okay. So then I think that was the most downloaded video I've got on my channel, like over 700 views on the YouTube channel, that is, not on podcasting. But anyway, so, the other last week or so, you went on some kind of you went from
Oklahoma.
I don't know how you did that. So you went from like New Mexico to Washington?
No, well, I went from Arizona up through the Grand Canyon, over to Las Vegas, up through Death Valley, up to Lake Tahoe, over to the coast and up the ocean, and then came to Salem and left my motorcycle in Washington.
So you rode your motorcycle, not your bicycle.
This is my motorcycle.
So how did you start? What is it? BMW what?
1200 GS. So I retire.
Have you seen the map of the engineer that put together the most efficient way to hit all 48 states in the shortest amount of time? It's like 8 days or something like that.
I have seen that, but this is an adventure. I don't want efficiency.
Well, that would be an adventure.
Yeah, if you do it in 8 days, your butt would hurt too on a motorcycle. But so what I'm trying to do is stay away from common stuff. When I left Vegas, I went through Death Valley. I wasn't supposed to. Remember, I was supposed to go to Reno. I never made it to Reno. And I rode up the eastern side of California up until I got to Lake Tahoe. And then it got cold. So I decided I need to change. I have to go to the coast. So I shot across the coast. And I went to Folsom.
Folsom prison?
California. I know, but the museum was closed.
Oh, yeah.
My dad loved Johnny Cash, and I was going to go spend time at Folsom prison. He was never in prison, but he loved Johnny Cash. But I did get to go see the prison. I got my picture in front of it.
Is it still a prison? I mean, is it operational?
Yeah, it's operational. I had to park in the visitor center. If I could have found somebody that was there and convinced him I knew him, I could have went and visited a prisoner. But I didn't know any prisoners. I guess I should have got on a mailing list. Then I would have known a prisoner. So, but I did get, but the guy said, if you walk too much farther, you're going to be in prison. Because there's a little sign that says no farther.
Oh.
But so you can take pictures, but it was cool. And then I went all the way to Westport camping. And I have a Facebook friend that I'd never met in person, but we've been Facebook friends for a long time. He's kind of a mutual friend of a friend. And he rides bicycles and I rode bicycles. So I went there, but I got there after the campsite closed. And I was like, uh-oh. But I was trying to figure out what to do now because I didn't have a campsite. I don't usually have hotel rooms either because I don't know where I'm going to end up.
So you just use a tent?
I have a tent with me for worst case scenarios. But, the weather has been kind of cool in April and March. So I've been staying in hotels, but there's no hotels. So I'm on the ocean and I'm outside this little thing and they're like, nobody there. I said, what do I do now? But then Ken and Joanne from Southern California came up and they said, are you from Oklahoma? Because my tag. And I said, yeah. I said, what do you do when you get here after they close? And they asked if I had a tent. And I said, yeah. And they said, well, come join us. So I got some new friends, Ken and Joanne. And I camped in front of their RV. They were looking at RVs. So camped in there. But my friend who works there, I didn't know if he was working yet there. He usually works in the summer.
Where are we again?
Westport. Yeah, campground in California up here somewhere. Near Fort Fort Bragg, north of
Okay.
that. But the next morning, I get out of my tent and I see the truck, the campground truck, come by, and it was like 5:30 before the sun came up, 6, and I said, oh, so I went walking, and then I saw the truck coming at me, and when I walked by, I had a hat on. I realized it was Richard, my friend, but I was headed to the ocean to take pictures of the sun coming up behind me. So then I came back, and I was by my motorcycle, and here comes that truck again, and I was talking to Ken and Joanne, and the guy in the truck's looking at the motorcycle, looking at me, and I said, I know this guy. And they looked at me like, how do you know this guy? You're from Oklahoma. I said, so he got out and he goes, Keith. So I got to meet one of my old Facebook friends for 10 years that I'd never met except by virtual. We talked for 15 minutes. It was cool. He was shocked. He couldn't believe it. He's like, because he'd been following me and he knew I was over here, but he didn't know I'd shot across.
Oh.
So I surprised him. So and then I took off and rode through the redwoods and up the coast, which was really cool.
Thank you for joining the Scott Townsend Show. We'll be back right after this.
Pop's Daylight Donuts, man, they've got the best tasting donuts, sausage wraps, pastries in Northeast Oklahoma. And also, if you'll tell the staff there, hey, Scott Townsend said to give me a large spicy pig, they'll give you a free large spicy sausage wrap. But you have to tell them Scott Townsend sent you. So tell them, hey, Scott Townsend told me to tell you to give me a large spicy pig. So there's the offer. There's the call to action. So go to Pop's Daylight Donuts. Say hi to Mark for me. And go to Pop's Daylight Donuts and get you some. The other sponsor is Castafly Outdoor Adventures.
Adventure. That's where it begins. We look to create and document our moments in time while embracing the majestic wonder and beauty of the great outdoors. Our quest is to explore the back roads of the Ozarks, camping, fishing, and just getting lost. Refresh your spirit and join us on our next adventure.
Paul and his crew invite you to subscribe to the Castafly Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel. So what was the most interesting, who was the most interesting, you met a lot of interesting people. Who's the most interesting person you met on this trip?
On the second leg or the first stage?
The second leg.
Second stage.
This last stage.
Okay. It's kind of weird, but I was in Oregon somewhere, taking pictures of the ocean, and there's a parking lot. And I found these little pennies, or I didn't find them, but in Texarkana, there's a guy that takes pennies and punches a cross in it, and he calls it the 1 cent for you. So before I left, that's why I was going to Texarkana, to see my friend, but also to pick up these pennies. So as I go across America, I can drop off these pennies, the 1 cent for you, which we'll tag that in there too. But the guy is Steve Petty. Steve Petty is the cousin to Richard Petty, the race car driver. Yeah. So he has a machine shop. So he's been doing this for 22 years. I think he's punched over 9 million pennies, and they've gone all over the United States, all over the world.
Yeah.
So he found out about my trip, and I got permission to come pick him up there, and kind of a thing because I needed him quick. So I've been handing out pennies, or leaving pennies in places everywhere I go, so people find a penny with a cross on it. So I'm up here in Oregon, and I see this bench. So I left a penny on the bench, and then I see a trash can, and there was 3 CDs, and I forgot, one of them was Creedence Clearwater Revival, and there was a country band, and another one was Reba McEntire. So I see him sitting up on top of the trash can, had a wooden box around it, and I open them up, and the CDs, and I was like, okay. So I kind of looked around. I hear a voice say, "They're good." And I see a guy sitting in a truck. And I went over there, I picked him up and I told him, I said, he goes, "Yeah, I got tired of him and didn't want to throw him away. So I just hoping somebody would take him." I said, "Well, I'm on a motorcycle. I don't have a CD player, but I'll take him back to Oklahoma." And he told me, I got talking to him. His family was from Oklahoma back in the Dust Bowl days. And they left Oklahoma and went to Bakersfield, California.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me, but what's crazy, his grandpa and grandma, they were somehow related to Bonnie and Clyde. And the grandpa and grandma used to hide Bonnie and Clyde when the cops were chasing them.
Oh,
and there's all these letters back and forth. And I was like, because I picked up those CDs and that guy, I heard a voice, and then I went over and talked to the guy. I heard this story that talked about Oklahoma and Bonnie and Clyde, and I thought it was really interesting. You just meet crazy people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You're out there.
On the road with Keith.
Yeah.
Well, wow. So you finally wound up in Woodland and didn't have any accidents. Sounds like everything went well.
Yeah.
It's good.
So my motorcycle is at my sister's house in Woodland, and I fly out there on May the 15th. I'm going to stay there and take care of my mom for a few days while she goes on her anniversary. And then I'm going to take off from there and ride to Kalispell, which will be like a 3 or 4 day, and park it there and fly home from Kalispell, Montana.
Cool. Well, when you get back from that trip, then I'll check in with you again and see how that went and what all kind of adventures you ran into or had.
So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 states done.
Okay, so you're at 39.
9. I got 39 more to go. You know, I won't get all 39, but I think I'll be.
Man, if you just rode straight up Kansas, Nebraska, over to Montana, Iowa, Utah, back down to Iowa, then Utah and Colorado, boom, you got one half of the United States done.
I know. I could come back here when I get
no. Just keep coming down. Just keep coming down the middle. Yeah, there you go.
But I have to get those.
Yeah, so
I could go here and then circle back around and come back up through here. Do the
no. That's too. That's a waste. You're wasting time and miles there. I know what you want to do.
Whoa. Wasting time and miles. Do you ever waste time and miles on an adventure? Do you ever? See, that's
depends on if you don't have anywhere to go.
The problem with people, everybody's in a hurry. You just got to get out and enjoy life. You know, 57 ways. Yeah, like Heinz 57 sauce, 57 ways. I'll have 57 stages for 57 days across America. I got time.
Okay. This is your adventure, not mine. I would do it different, but that's.
Hey, you want to ride on the back? You can be on. You can be on the back. You got to throw out of your chair. So here's the thing.
No, I'm not riding on the back.
Good, because I'd be scared.
Yeah.
To fall off.
We'd be doing a wheelie the whole way.
Yeah. People ask me why I go by myself. It's because you meet interesting people when you're by yourself. If you go with a group, you just talk to that group. But when you're by yourself, you're lonely. You have to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So
there you go. So thanks for watching. If you would like this show, if you like the channel, I invite you to subscribe, share. We're on all the iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, I invite you to like it, share it, subscribe. And yeah. So thanks, Keith. Yeah.
What can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Okay. People that are watching, I'm in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We still have time if Scott gets it done quick enough before I take off from there. But I'm going here. If you have interesting places for you want me to check out that you've never been to.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's cool.
Send us a note. Comment
send a note.
and say, and then when we go there, I'll say, I went here for.
It's like a scavenger hunt, kind of.
Yeah.
And you can take pictures of Yeah, so you can take pictures of people that say, hey, stop by our place, get a picture with us or of this place. Yeah, if you've got a place that you think Keith needs to go see during that
We've got
next leg of
family.
his trip, if you got family, whatever, you want to send a message, you want a picture that's proof, let us know where that is, who that is, and I guess that's up to you, Keith, to do that.
Yeah. So one more thing.
Okay, another thing.
Steve Petty,
Steve
you know,
Petty.
the one that made the pennies, the 1 cent for 1 cent for you. Here's the deal. Remember, he's cousins to Richard Petty.
Right.
Richard Petty lives down here in North Carolina or South Carolina.
Mhm.
Steve told me when I was telling him what I was doing, he goes, when you go through there, stop by and see Richard Petty. And I said, well, that's not so easy. And he said, it is now because you got me as your friend. So I met Steve. So I got to remind Steve, hey, you got to get me in to see Richard. So
Cool.
I may, but if you have any famous people, I'll go visit them.
Yeah.
You can say,
Okay.
hey, this crazy guy on a motorcycle, but he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And then you can be on the Scott Townsend Show.
And then you can be on Scott Townsend Show. So
Okay.
I'll post your Facebook page on the show notes below. And yeah, so people can follow you on these little adventures.
And you can see all my pictures. My brother said, why do you post 60 pictures of the Grand Canyon? I said, because I want to go back and look at them someday.
Mhm.
Because it's like going. So I have to get a fancy camera. But
Yeah.
my iPhone 10 or iPhone 11 is really good.
Yeah. The best camera is the one you got. So yeah.
Yeah, I can carry it
Use
in my
it.
pocket. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Keith, for all the info and filling us in. And I'll probably post this on the Call High Wildcats 1982 page because you mentioned a lot of 1982 graduates.
Yeah. Scott Jansen, Chris Stark, Goodrich. We had good times at Barrett Jackson.
All
And
right.
thanks for
Well,
the invite, guys.
you bet. So, oh no.
Yeah, thanks for the invite to you, Scott. 'Cause you're my oldest friend. Well, actually, Bryn Goodrich is probably my oldest friend.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for Keith Clark, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for joining the Scott Townsend Show. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Dietzo Man production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.